This is a man who can foresee the future. He casually approaches the gaming machine and effortlessly wins the jackpot with a random press. Chris has the ability to see 2 minutes into the future, but he doesn't flaunt it. He goes to the entertainment hall to play cards, knowing full well that he will win, but he places small bets. Chris understands that drawing attention could invite trouble, so he only plays occasionally to stay safe. But today, casino security chief Roybal happens to be watching the full court monitor again. Roybal claims to have hawk-like eyes and can catch any suspicious players with his keen observations. He notices that Chris remains calm and composed despite his winnings, and there's no sign of cheating. Curious about Chris's identity, Roybal asks his subordinates for information. However, Chris stares directly into the camera as if he knows someone is discussing him behind his back. Roybal interprets Chris's nonchalant gaze as a challenge.
दो आदमी जल्दी से टेबल नंबर 27 पर पहुंचो, मैं अभी आ रहा हूं.
Sensing something, Chris immediately stands up and intends to leave. Chris approaches the front desk to exchange his chips, but just as he waits for the exchange, an unexpected visitor appears.
जल्दी ये सारे पैसे मुझे
बंदूक फेंक दो, अबे!
This thrilling scene turned out to be a future vision foreseen by Chris. Since he already knows the man's intentions, Chris decisively intervenes before the man can draw his gun. This takes the robber by surprise.
और वहीं बैठ जाओ. पीछे हटो, हम अभी
ये बंदूक किसकी है? ये दो लोगों को मार
बंदूक फेंक दो, लगा लेंगे.
Unbeknownst to Chris, his good deed leads to trouble. Roybal mistakes him for the robber. Roybal immediately calls for all security personnel in the venue, intending to apprehend Chris. However, Chris remains calm and uses his foresight ability to cleverly evade the security search. Even though the back-end surveillance personnel report his real-time location, Chris easily eludes them, but with the exit guarded by security, he needs to come up with a plan to escape. Chris seizes the opportunity to enter the restroom, where he removes his coat and changes his appearance. However, something still seems missing, until a strange old man arrives and gives Chris something to hide behind. Chris quickly makes his way out of the lobby, as a woman waits for the valet to bring her car. Chris swiftly gets into a vehicle and accelerates away. By the time Roybal catches up, he can only helplessly call the police. However, before Chris has driven too far, several police cars start chasing him. With the police closing in, he has no choice but to increase his speed. A tragedy occurs due to a careless mistake. Fortunately, this was only a future vision seen by Chris. In order to avoid the risk of being hit, Chris had to continue to increase the speed of the car, and this extra second allowed him to avoid the crisis. This incident, though not too big nor too small, caught the attention of Callie from the CIA. The reason Callie was inquiring about this case was because she had been keeping a close eye on Chris. Chris performs magic tricks for a living, but he does them with precognition. It's an unusual magic show that has long caught Callie's attention. However, she had never been able to gather any concrete evidence of his supernatural powers. It was only through the surveillance footage from the casino that her initial suspicions were confirmed. And Chris has returned to his place at the moment, playing ball with his old friend in his spare time. However, the friend hoped that Chris would quit his current lifestyle and live a normal life. Although Chris appreciated his friend's concern, everything he was doing at the moment was in search of a woman who appeared in his future visions. There was just one peculiar thing. Chris's foresight had a time limit of 2 minutes, but the appearance of this woman surpassed his ability to understand the reason behind it. Chris decided to continue investigating. During their conversation, Chris foresaw the arrival of the FBI. Ordinary cases attracting the attention of the CIA puzzled Chris, prompting him to find out their true motives. As expected, Callie arrived based on the location of the stolen vehicle. Callie wants Chris to do her job for her and use his precognitive powers to find a group of terrorists. Months ago, a batch of nuclear bombs had gone missing in Russia, and intelligence revealed that they had reached Los Angeles. However, the CIA had been unable to locate their hiding place, so Callie wants Chris to use his precognition to find out where the nukes are deployed. Unfortunately, Chris was unable to help. His foresight was limited to events within 2 minutes, and he could only predict things related to himself. Thus, he couldn't assist Callie in completing the mission. However, Callie suspected that Chris was deliberately refusing to cooperate and planned to apprehend him forcefully. Luckily, this scene was just a future vision witnessed by Chris. Knowing everything in advance, Chris decided to escape from the situation before it unfolded. When Callie and her team arrived, suspecting that Chris had used his foresight, they were unaware that they had attracted the attention of the terrorists. The terrorists found out about Callie's investigation from the casino manager, Roybal, and learned about Chris's abilities. Innocent Chris now had an additional formidable enemy for no reason. Despite being pursued by both sides, Chris boldly entered a restaurant, as he knew that he would meet the woman he foresaw in this place. When the time came to 8:09, the woman did appear in front of him. He unabashedly stared at her as she walked past him, confirming that she was indeed the person he was looking for. Chris contemplated how to approach and strike up a conversation with her. Initiating a conversation was both a skill and an act of courage.
आप यहाँ पर अकेली हैं, क्या मैं यहाँ पर बैठ सकता हूँ? हेलो?
अकेले रहना चाहूँ।
Although his first attempt at approaching her failed, Chris was not ready to give up. He tried to use various excuses to reach out to the attractive woman in front of him, but every attempt ended in rejection. Chris made 4 or 5 attempts to strike up a conversation, only to be directly turned down by Liz. Finally, in his frustration, Chris was about to come up with a new excuse when Liz preemptively shut him down, not even giving him a chance to speak. Chris felt helpless in this situation. Just when he was at a loss, a man in a suit appeared and created an opportunity for Chris, only to see the man came to Liz's heel and sat down. It turns out that he is Liz's ex-boyfriend Kendall, which is trying to get back together with her. However, Liz had lost interest in Kendall and promptly rejected his request. Unexpectedly, Kendall resorted to forceful pulling and tugging. In this crucial moment, Chris seized the opportunity and intervened, stopping Kendall's aggressive behavior. This, however, infuriated Kendall. Kendall intended to teach Chris a lesson but was evaded by Chris's precognitive abilities.
मेरा नाम Chris है. Hi.
Although Chris's intention was to protect Liz and teach Kendall a lesson, he did not win Liz's favor. It was only when Liz stood up to leave that Chris realized that using force to counter force wouldn't win Liz's heart. Fortunately, this was just a future vision witnessed by Chris. Knowing this in advance, he decided to change his approach. This time, when faced with Kendall's rudeness, Chris chose to silently endure it. Chris fell to the ground, pretending to be hurt, and started plotting his next move. When Liz saw Chris getting hurt for her, she immediately kicked Kendall out and even kindly wiped the corner of Chris's mouth where he was injured. With this ruse, Chris successfully became friends with Liz. In order to spend more time with her, Chris used his precognitive abilities to learn that Liz would soon be going to a suburban area. He lied, claiming that his car had been stolen, and thus managed to hitch a ride with her. They had a pleasant journey together, laughing and talking, until Liz arrived at a Native American reservation in the outskirts. It turned out that Liz worked there as a volunteer teacher, but only came twice a week. Liz was there to deliver a birthday gift to one of the students. Since it's a student's birthday, Chris would like to make a gesture. He approached the young boy and prepared to perform a small magic trick for him.
ये पत्थर मुझे इसी पहाड़ी के पास मिला. इसे कस के अपने हाथ में पकड़ना. हाँ? चुप. अपने हाथ में पकड़ो. ये एक जादुई पत्थर है. आप जादू देखना नहीं देना. समझे? ये बिल्कुल नहीं काटेगा. जन्मदिन मुबारक.
Little did Liz know that Chris had such a tender side, and this gradually made her develop feelings for him. In no time, they continued their journey by car. However, continuous rainfall caused the road to collapse. Upon the advice of the repair crew, they had no choice but to turn back and head to a nearby hotel. Unfortunately, at that moment, the hotel had only one room left. Chris considerately lit the fireplace and then went alone to sleep in the car. Feeling cared for, Liz was relieved to have encountered a gentlemanly and attentive man. Lying in bed, Liz couldn't sleep and couldn't help getting up to check on Chris. Liz wanted to invite Chris to come inside and rest, but out of the reserve expected of a woman, she restrained herself and ultimately remained silent. It wasn't until the next day when the sun rose that Liz emerged from the bathroom after getting ready, and Chris presented her with a small gift he had prepared. Already having some feelings for Chris, now with an additional pleasant surprise, Liz couldn't help but feel a flutter of excitement in that moment. The bond between them instantly grew stronger. Just as their affection deepened, the intelligence agency located Chris's whereabouts. In order to take advantage of Chris's magical precognitive powers, they deployed a large police force with the intention of kidnapping Chris back. However, this scene was discovered by a secretly trailing terrorist organization. Their objectives were all centered around capturing Chris. But ever since Chris started being with Liz, his precognitive abilities had undergone changes. To what extent his abilities had changed, you would understand by the end, revealing his immense power. Now, after their affectionate moments, Liz ventured out alone to buy food, but she became the target of both the intelligence agency and the terrorist organization. Callie from the intelligence agency refrained from forcing her way into the room because she was concerned about Chris's precognitive abilities detecting them. So while Liz is out alone, Callie invites Liz to the car as a CIA agent. Callie showed Liz a video of Chris holding a gun in a casino, hoping to convince her. Liz didn't want to believe it, but the video couldn't be faked. And with the official witnesses, she was devastated. Seeing the persuasion plan succeed, they brought out a pill. By adding the pill to a beverage, Chris would fall asleep within 5 minutes, allowing the intelligence agency to enter the room and capture him. Reluctantly, Liz returned to the room with the mission entrusted to her by the authorities. At that moment, Chris was washing up while Liz followed Callie's instructions and put the pill into the juice. However, this time, the delivery took more than 2 minutes to prevent Chris from foreseeing the outcome. Just as Chris was about to drink the juice, Liz interrupted him and revealed everything that had happened. To debunk Callie's lies, Chris had no choice but to prove his abilities to Liz. He turned on the television, and he accurately predicted every line spoken on every channel before it was said. This single demonstration was enough to prove Chris's superhuman abilities, and Liz chose to believe him. However, outside, two opposing factions were present, and to keep Liz from getting involved, Chris instructed her to follow the instructions on a note while he went to lure away the pursuers from both sides. As Chris fled towards the hillside, a large group of agents chased after him. The terrorists could only aim their sniper rifles at him, ready to pull the trigger, but Chris had foreseen the danger. Meanwhile, Liz finally emerged from the room and got onto her car, starting the engine and deliberately crashing it into a wooden water tower. The impact caused the scattered debris to roll down the hill, buying more time for Chris to escape. The plan was more successful, but Callie was waiting in the middle of the road ahead of time. While they were in a stalemate, the debris fell down the hill. Seeing Callie in imminent danger, Chris rushed forward without hesitation to save her. While they managed to avoid the risk, they became trapped, and the arriving agents rescued them. As Chris was taken away by the CIA, the terrorist organization couldn't leave empty-handed and set their sights on Liz. They intended to use Liz as leverage to coerce Chris. However, Chris was in a difficult situation. He was fitted with a device that prevented him from closing his eyes, forcing him to watch news broadcasts to identify potential terrorist events. Although Chris wanted to cooperate with the investigation, his precognitive visions were limited to events involving himself. Nevertheless, he had to try and see the future, but he never expected to see Liz held hostage by terrorists and blown up on the spot. This tragic outcome tormented Chris, but he still had a chance to prevent it from happening, so he reluctantly agreed to assist in the investigation. Accompanied by Callie, Chris arrived at the scene where Liz was killed in the explosion.
ठीक से बताओ तुमने क्या देखा?
वो लिज को मार देंगे, वो देखा है। ठीक इसी जगह, इस छत पर।
However, he dared not approach the balcony because there was a sniper lurking in a nearby corner. The terrorist organization wanted to use Liz as bait to assassinate Chris. As long as Chris is dead, no one will know about the nuclear warheads they planted. To break this impasse, Callie ordered the shutdown of signal towers within a 3-kilometer radius, preventing the sniper from communicating with the organization. Chris uses his precognitive powers to get to the balcony and dodges the incoming bullet as the sniper fires. This exposed the sniper's location successfully. With the threat of the sniper eliminated, Chris once again employed his precognition, seeing the terrorists bringing Liz to the location. However, the only breakthrough at the moment was the license plate on the car. Callie obtained the number and immediately instructed her subordinates to search for the owner's information. Meanwhile, the terrorist organization was preparing to take action, unaware that a large number of special police had already surrounded them before they could leave the compound, all thanks to the license plate providing crucial information. Although they were surrounded, the terrorists are all desperados. They will not be captured. The terrorists lurking in the surroundings and the police entered a standoff. Chris used his precognition to tell the police exactly where the killers were hiding, and the terrorists were eliminated by the CIA. But the terrorists used Liz as a hostage so that the CIA could not shoot them easily. They entered a hidden room in the compound, and Chris acted as the vanguard using his precognitive abilities, though he was shot in a vital spot. This was only the future he had foreseen, allowing him to locate the hidden terrorists.
दूसरी मंजिल पर दाईं ओर
मंजिल पे दाईं ओर।
दिख गया।
With the assistance of his extraordinary abilities, the terrorist leader was eventually exposed.
लेकिन सभी तुम्हारे लिए इस कहानी का हर मुमकिन अंत में देख चुका।
खतरों से खेलने की आदत है मुझे। एक भी कदम अगर आगे बढ़ाया मिस्टर जित है।
Taking advantage of the distraction, Callie shot and incapacitated him, resolving the hostage crisis. However, the threat from the terrorist organization was not over. They had secretly relocated the nuclear warhead. Chris tries to use precognition to find it, but by the time he spots the clues, it's too late to stop it.
विस्फोट होने वाला है।
कब?
अभी।
You think it's over? It's just the future that Chris met. Since being with Liz, his ability to foresee time has significantly increased. To prevent Liz from getting involved and to save the city, Chris voluntarily sought out Callie. He was determined to do his utmost to change the impending disaster. Foresight was released in 2007 and is based on an amazing science fiction novel. It utilized the concept of encountering the future, making the movie highly intriguing. Encountering the future is akin to divination and fortune-telling. If you were truly given the ability to foresee the future, would you consider it a blessing or a curse?